If you told me I would bungee jump to touch the source of the Nile in Jinja, Uganda, I would have told you it would be my scariest moment in Africa. I was really wrong, though. Uganda held so many moments that would scare me or stay with me forever, even more than a 150-foot drop. My entire family was against my decision to go to Africa. My mother pointed out that there were some other countries I could study at that had connections with UTMB. I knew she was right, but I also knew that I wanted to take the summer to truly experience something different. When I began looking into options for my summer, I knew I wanted something different than my usual summer bench research. I wanted to come back to school a changed person. While I do not consider myself a culturally ignorant person, I know that just by the nature of not having spent a lot of my life outside of Texas, I have not really been exposed to much. Making the decision to go to Uganda was easy. Not wishing I was back in America wasn't easy. May 15th, 2014. Touring the wards at Nyakibali Hospital. This post is really hard to describe. Today, we were taken on tours of the wards in the hospital. Coming to stay at the hospital had many adjustments for me personally. No running water, sparse electricity, random and unreliable internet, and strange food only began to describe the things I'm not excited about. After touring the wards, however, I realized I needed quite an attitude adjustment. My new, ridiculous living conditions were looking quite nice and clean compared to what we had just walked through. May 20th, 2014. AIDS in Africa. Coming to Uganda, I was well aware of the high prevalence of HIV-positive patients. I was not, however, aware of the different perspective on HIV in this country. Here in Uganda, the HIV status is one of the last things on healthcare workers' minds. While it is well known that many of the patients we will see in the hospital are in fact HIV positive, it is not well documented. Very few are actually aware of their HIV status. Unfortunately, by the time they present here to the hospital, it is often at the bottom of the list of the concerns. I have noticed by my chart reviews that people in Uganda do not present to the hospital unless they are very sick. Many patients arrive in need of life-saving treatments for malaria, typhoid, or various parasites. Finding out their HIV status becomes a low priority when you realize the number of patients who will die from the above-listed ailments. That being said, knowing HIV status of a patient changes little about the care they are given here. It is heartwarming to see the doctors here concerned about patient outcome and nothing else when they are at the bedside. If anything, I can hope to remember that when I see a patient, I should only see them and not their disease. June 25th, 2014. Dr. JC's voice startled me. Elizabeth, you might want to take a break and come see this. It's not something you will see again for a while in your career. While scrubbing in, I was informed of the situation. The little boy had an intussusception. This meant that for some reason he had experienced reverse pericystalis at his ileocecal junction, and his large intestine was now digesting his small intestine. When I entered the room, they already had the patient open. The small intestine had dilated to nearly 3 times its original size. Suddenly, a stream of yellow liquid shot into the air. The bowel had perforated. The odds didn't look good. He was more than twice as likely to become septic now that the contents of his intestines had opened into the sterile field. Laying in bed that night, I felt a sense of guilt. I was becoming desensitized. In the whole afternoon in theater, I had not once thought about this little boy as a person. To me, he was many things: a disturbance to my work, an intussusception case, a rare medical find. I don't know why my mind made him so impersonal. Maybe somewhere deep down I knew he was really sick. In all reality, it's so much easier to watch a risky surgery from the perspective of a case study than to actually attach the humanness to the case. I felt bad about all these feelings, but I couldn't help but wonder how many times I would feel like this in the years to come. Being in Uganda, I never felt so American. At first, I really disliked that when I looked at a stretch of open land, I saw opportunity for growth and change. Why couldn't I appreciate it like all the other Ugandans? Looking back on it now, I realize that seeing things through my American perspective is something I can never change. It doesn't necessarily have to be a bad thing, though. Seeing the possibilities can be a gift if you let it be. With time, I began to realize that very few people in Uganda saw the possibilities. They simply had never been exposed to them. While in the beginning I was simply frustrated to be in Uganda with so few resources with which to make a difference, time helped me realize that I needed to channel my frustration into changes and ideas for Nyakibale Hospital to grow. Being in an area with so few resources, the medical staff and all hospital personnel were constantly challenged to think of creative solutions for problems. I worry that growing up in a country with so many possibilities at my fingertips has made me less creative in some ways. When I look at a broken foot, I think, what is the standard of care for this patient? If the standard of care is not available, I'm not sure what I could even begin to suggest. That is something that medical school does not prepare you for. In Uganda, they always plan for what is best for right now. One thing that stuck out to me about this plan of action is the fact that what was best right now was not always what some would call the standard of care. I hope I can remember that fact even when I am in the face of thousands of resources.